Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today in the channel, we are taking a look at the prototype version of Story of Many. And this is a game that will be hitting Kickstarter or crowdfund. I think it's Kickstarter today, the day that this video posts. And so I'm making this video to provide some information for people. So the Story of Many is a dark fantasy game set in an original open world. The Story of Many is a sprawling sandbox game inspired by tons of the things that we love at the Dungeon Dive. And some of those things include fighting fantasy, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition with those kind of emergent stories, the emergent and narrative and those memorable moments that that game creates. Games like Hero Quest, Dungeons and Dragons, Descent, and then video games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Titan Quest, and Grim Dawn. These are all cool things. These are all things that have inspired this game. As a matter of fact, the designers have even used some of the tools that we as solo RPG players use to craft our own solo games. They've used things like the Tome of Adventure Design to help create their world and to help create their quests and adventures. So the world of Varda and the world of this game is overflowing. It's packed with things to do and discover, with lore to uncover that will reward the careful player. And something that the designers stressed to me over and over again while I was talking with them, I had about an hour and a half long conversation with them over Zoom, is the idea of organic exploration, of organic discovery. They want the players to feel like they are in this world, wandering about, looking for neat things to do, looking for things to discover, and kind of being in charge of that feeling of discovery. And I think that is great. So far, I've only dabbled with the game, and to be honest, I'm not so concerned with the details of the mechanisms. If you want to learn how to play the game, this is not the video for you. I am just going to be giving you some reasons why I'm excited about this game and why I am backing it. If you want to learn how to play, if you want to dive into the nitty-gritty of the mechanisms, there are two channels, Rolling Solo and Conhey Studios. They both have very detailed Let's Play videos showing how everything works in detail. So if that's what you want, go check out those two channels and you will be satisfied. So after reading the rulebook and looking at everything, it's pretty clear to me that the designers aren't trying to reinvent the wheel here. We have dice to be rolled. You will be adding bonuses to those die rolls. We have stat tests and combat challenges. There's map movement, exploration, reading story text, having campaign and character progression. If you've played an RPG or adventure board game or video game in the last 10 to 20 years, you know what to expect with the Story of Many. And hey, that's perfectly fine. The entire focus of the Dungeon Dive is the phrase, just like, only different. So they're not out there to reinvent the wheel. They've taken all of these really cool influences and combined them into something that I think is really interesting. What I'm most interested in is how all of these things are combined into a game that seems to do it all. And that's really what I'm interested in this game, and that's why I am backing it. They sent me this prototype to check out without any promise of a complete copy or any payment of any kind. And as a matter of fact, I'm putting my money behind this game. I am backing it. If they happen to send me a copy, it'll just be an extra copy that I give away to a Dungeon Dive patron. So I don't know if they're doing that or not. I don't expect it, and they haven't offered. And from what I've learned with talking with the designers and after reading the rules and the adventures and the Book of Rumors and checking out all of the components that were given to me in this prototype version, I've learned that I want to back it, and I'm going to give you some reasons why right now. One of the first reasons why I'm interested in this game is that we as backers have a decision. We have a choice to make. And that choice is whether we want miniatures or not. And I am very happy with that. So there will be a regular version, a base version that contains all of the good stuff. And that's the cardboard. That's the stuff that actually makes the game what it is. all of the adventures, all of the books of text and rumors and the maps and the stickers and the cards. Everything that you need to play the game will be included in that base version. And that base version only comes with, I think, one miniature, and that's a party miniature to represent your party around the board. And then there will be a deluxe version that will come with all of your miniatures. And there will be hundreds of miniatures that this game will come with. It looks like it's coming with even some scenery that you might be able to use to make your adventures look more interesting. You'll have minis for your various enemies that you will be fighting and for your heroes and your party. Each of the classes will have its own mini. So if you want to go crazy with plastic, the option is there for you. But for those of us who just want the cardboard, who just want the game, we have that option with the base version. And I am very happy to have that choice. If the only choice was hundreds of miniatures, I actually don't know if I would be backing this. So that right there really pushes me towards being excited for this game. Another reason I'm interested in the story of many is all of the different ways that we have to play the game. There is a large campaign with multiple different story paths that you can work through. And in one play of the campaign, you won't see all of those story paths. So you can play through the main story multiple times, discovering things as you go. There are also dungeon crawls, large and mini dungeon crawls. There are large story arcs. There are individual adventures within those different story arcs. There are one-off dungeons. There are one-off adventures. And it's really easy for players to drop in and drop out without messing things up. So if you're short on time and you just want to play through a little dungeon, you can set up a randomly generated dungeon and have a little adventure. If you have a friend who might be interested in joining your campaign, but they don't want to make the commitment yet, you can invite them over and play through a small 1 hour, one-off session so they can learn the game. And I think that is really cool. This is a game that I think has learned a lot from modern video games in that it respects the player's time and it knows that not everybody has hours and hours and hours a week to devote to the game. So it has broken things up in little bite-sized chunks that you can play when you have the time, and you can plug away on your overall campaign. And as you play through that campaign, you'll learn more things about the world, and you will develop your world and your character as you are playing through all of those different ways to play the game. And that is very, very cool. So I think the thing I'm most excited about is the huge open world sandbox, the world of Varda that we will be able to explore with all of these different regions. There are 50 different regions. We have the Pocket Hills, the Silent Moors, the Lorne Swamp, Fanghold Forest. We have the Thundergale Mountains, the Eastern Heartlands, the Pastor Fields, Golendarth, Ulva's Seat, Terekia. We have huge civilizations and settlements like Murden Hall up there, or Von Varos just off camera here. We have these sea regions with all of these different islands. This is a huge, open, sprawling world that is really open to the players from the very beginning of the game. So the way that works is the game is divided into 5 different tiers. When you start the game, you will be at tier 1, and you can choose one of the major settlements to start your game in. From there, you can venture out and you can discover new little locations, different adventures, depending on which adventure you've chosen in the Book of Adventures. You might go out and find a dungeon or some ruins, or have to go to a village and discover what's in the village. And while you are at tier level 1, all of the adventures, all of the encounters, all of the quests will be at tier 1. But as your character levels up from tier 1 to the final tier at tier 5, then the game levels up with you. So if you're at tier 2, you will have tier 2 encounters and tier 3 quests and tier 2 dungeons, tier 2 adventures. So the whole world is open, and it just depends on what level your character or your character party is at. That will determine the level of the adventures and the level of challenges that you have available to you. Each one of these different locations, and again, there are 50 We can take a look at a small map here. So this is our campaign track here. So here are all of the different locations in the world of Varda. But each one of those locations will have a number of different rumors associated with it. And the designers told me that there will be between 1 and 5 rumors for each of the 50 different locations. And these rumors will point the players to additional quests. They will point the players to points of interest. They will point the players to ruins, to dungeons, and to things to do in the world. And as you are playing, you will take a set of stickers and you will put those stickers on those maps as you discover those various points of interest. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of the game, you will seed your map with a certain number of rumor stickers and dungeon stickers and treasure stickers. And that will give you some direction of where you might want to go at the very beginning of the game. You don't have to follow that main path. You can go off and have some side quests and some side exploration while you discover those rumors. And you will tick off the rumors as you read them, as you discover them from moving from one region to the next. And each one of those regions will give you, or each one of those rumors might give you a little choice. Maybe it might be a little side quest, or it might open up something in another region where you will put a sticker and that will be a point of interest that your character can go out and explore at a later time. So think of this as when you are playing Skyrim and you're walking, you're walking to one of the major cities and all of a sudden, you see those things start appearing on your map. Like, hey, to the north, there's a ruin. To the south, there's a cave and things like that. And so as you are walking, as you are discovering the world, the map will start to populate. And for those of you who are concerned about the stickers will be removable so you can reset your game. But the designers are encouraging people, they told me that they're encouraging people to keep playing in this persistent world that you have created while you are exploring, because it kind of has a new game plus type situation where you can complete one major story arc of the campaign, but then you can start again in the world that has already been populated with some things that your characters and that you as the players know. And so you will continue to play in the world that you have created. And because it's open ended, everybody's map is going to be somewhat different as they play. You can also unlock different types of weapons and gear and encounters depending on what tier you are in. And then when you start a new game, you can start with all of that stuff already unlocked. So there is a light legacy element. You aren't really destroying anything for those of you who don't want to destroy your stuff like you would in a typical in a typical legacy game, but there is that idea of a persistent world that you will be creating while you are playing. And I think that is really interesting. The next point I want to cover is the Book of Adventures and how the different adventures are associated with those rumors, with those locations, and how these regions will have different things that we can explore while we are working through the adventures. So each one of these regions, there are 50 different regions about. Each one of those will have an adventure. I don't know, maybe 2, maybe more, but we'll have at least one adventure that you can go on in that region. So is a ton of stuff to do, and the adventures are quite detailed. The prototype version came with 3 different adventures, and they start in different locations. So we have Adventure 1, The Waystone, and this is a Tier 1 intro adventure. So when your characters first start out, you are at Tier 1. So you will play through one of the Tier 1 adventures, and you can choose which one you want to play. So right there's already a whole bunch of variety, because you could start the game with a completely different adventure in a completely different part of the land than someone else who might be starting the game on the same day as you. As you play through the adventure, you will have different things to discover, different clues to discover, and the adventure will walk you through all of the things, kind of like a solo RPG module. We have another adventure here, Tier 1 Intro, and that is the Flames of Revenge. And same thing there. And the designers have stressed to me that they want each adventure to feel different, have different types of mechanisms, have different puzzles that maybe you have to solve, or different types of encounters. And one thing they stress is that each region will feel different. It'll have its own kind of biome, and you will start to learn about each of the regions through the different types of encounters you have, and the encounters will make sense in the lore of the game. And as you discover things, you will be able to put the pieces together of this large kind of story puzzle that's going on. And careful players who pay a lot of attention, like the lore hunters in the From Software video games, they will discover a lot of little hidden secrets and things that they can take with them as they continue to play the game. So here we have our third introductory adventure, and that is the Unexpected Patron. And again, that is a tier 1 introduction. And when you play the adventure, each one of these adventures will have its own deck of exploration cards. And this is where the game gets really interesting. So we've often talked on the channel about a kind of dream game where you are working on an overland map, and then you get to a certain location, and then you get to dive into that as a more detailed adventure, as a detailed dungeon crawl or a city crawl or something. And this game does that. So each of the adventures will have its own adventure deck. And that adventure deck will be a certain type of dungeon or a certain location that you will be able to explore in detail as you work through the tunnels of a dungeon or the rooms of a ruin. And you will turn to the different pages, the different paragraphs in the adventure book to see what you have discovered on each tile as you build the map. And each of the adventure locations will be different. Here we have some kind of stone structure in the Flames of Revenge. We have a kind of a cavern. This is like more of a man-made structure. Here we have a cavern that's kind of mixed with some man-made locations there, some rooms. And then this one is very different in that third adventure, The Unexpected Patron. This will have an entire village that you will be exploring, and you will be building the village as you explore and as you read through the adventure game or the adventure book. And so this here is kind of like the designers were inspired by things like Seventh Continent or Tainted Grail. And as you build these out, you will learn about the different things, and maybe destinies as well. You will be exploring this world and reading about the different inhabitants and having all kinds of different adventures. I think these mini location decks are really cool. And some of these can be used for those one-off game modes. And that might include here these dungeon cards. So there will be a whole bunch of different dungeon and cave cards that you can mix and match to create random dungeons. And so these are kind of like your dungeon morphs here on the side. And you might have different colored doors that you will have to find keys to unlock. We have green, red, and blue, and different encounters that you might have while you are on a random dungeon crawl. There will be dungeons populated throughout the world. Some of them might use these random dungeon cards. Some of them might use a more unique kind of bespoke tile set to represent that different location. But they're really stressing that each of the locations should be different. When you are on these adventures and you enter into combat, you will pull out the little combat board here. And there are 3 different spaces for different types of tactical positioning and setting up your strategies, and a little bit of a skirmish style, kind of abstract skirmish style combat with these different wells around to keep track of the health for all of the different monsters. So I think this system is pretty cool. I love how the different locations will have rumors. The different rumors will point to different other more detailed locations, all while you are exploring this world and working through one of 50 plus different adventures, working towards that solving that overall campaign arc, that overall story arc. And then you reach the end, and then you can start all over again with your same characters and go through a completely different style of adventure. That is amazing. Another thing I'm excited about is the character creation and character progression. So there are 10 different classes. We have barbarians, paladins, pirates, rogues, clerics, fighters, ninjas, seers, sorcerers, and wizards. And I have cards for most of those here. So here we have our barbarian, our sorcerer, the cleric, the fighter, the paladin, the pirate, The Reaver Witch, hey, that wasn't mentioned, so I'm not sure. Again, this is a prototype, so things might be a little bit different. We have our Rogue and our Seer, and then on the backs of those, we will have our starting a little bit of lore about that type of class, and our starting attributes and our starting gear for when you want to play that character. And then there will also be 16 different races, things like humans and Necrian and Gorodu and Sylph. So not your standard fantasy. They're maybe not elves, maybe not dwarves. So there are some unique races that you can play as and that you can interact with in this game. It does feel like a wholly original kind of fantasy world, and that is something I'm excited about. Now, with characters, you can either create a character using a point system or using the character. You can create your own character with your own skills and things, or you can use one of the pre generated characters. And the game is going to come with a whole bunch of pre generated characters so that if you have a friend over and they want to check out the game, you can just hand them one of the pre gens and they can dive right in without having to take the time to create their own character. And the developers have told me, the designers have told me that they want to keep like their website populated with a whole bunch of different pre-generated characters for people to pick, and you can make your party compositions. I should say, I don't think I mentioned it so far, but the game does need to be played with 2 characters, and it scales down to 2 characters and it scales up to 4 characters. So if you are playing solo, there is no lone wolf mode. You will need to play as at least 2 characters. But I've been told that the developers are trying to keep the characters simple enough to where that won't be a major problem. There won't be a ton of bookkeeping, but complex enough to where you will feel like you have some good choices to make in putting together a party of only 2 and how those 2 characters might work with each other, supporting each other, and balancing out each other's strengths and weaknesses. So the really cool thing about the character system, though, is the skill system, and you have a whole bunch of different skills that you can learn in different schools. We have body and melee and survival, perhaps for the barbarian. And as you are developing your character, you're going to be working through this book of spheres. And hey, fans of Titan Quest and Grim Dawn, I'm sure this skill system looks very familiar. It was inspired by those action RPG computer games. And so here we have our skill tree for your body, for your physical strength. And when your characters are at tier 1, they can learn these skills, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and finally in tier 5, you will have your ultimate skills that you can work up towards. And so this is a skill tree, and you will be making progress on this skill tree as your character progresses. So we have skill tree for body. We have cloaks. So that's kind of like your espionage, your thieves. We have conjuration. We have death, probably your necromancy there. Your defense skill tree, destruction, divination, holy, law, melee, and what else do we have? We have ranged and survival and treasure hunter. Man, look at that one. That looks way different. That is super cool. Witchery. And here we have a few others. We have the Path of Rage. We have the Mend Wounds Path, the Blessing of the Gods, the Master of Arms, the Warcast Rune, Life on a Ship. Oh, you can be like a naval character. These look like skill specializations. The Sneak Attack and the Clairvoyant and the Elemental Bolt. So there is just a ton of variety in how you will build out your different characters. Here we have some blank sheets for the cleric, for the fighter, for the paladin. So on these sheets, you will keep track of your basic stats like your strength, agility, stamina, mind, and willpower. You will keep track of what you have, your encumbrance, how many things you can carry. And then you can also use these large character, double tiered character stands, or not stands, but sheets here. These double layer sheets that you can slide in your character sheet, and then you can keep track of it on here. And then around the character sheet, you can keep track of all of your different skills from your tier 1 to tier 5. And you can have all of your tier 1 skills up there. You'll keep track of all of your skills around here, and then all of your wondrous treasure. And then here you can keep track of things that are in your backpack and things that you are holding, your different defenses and your saving throws, and your different skills that you have learned. And this will be a place for your health. So, very thoughtful. Everything seems like it's well designed. We also have a whole bunch of different armor and weapons. I think there will be something like 200 different pieces of equipment. Unfortunately, my prototype version came with a duplicate stack of cards, so I didn't get everything needed. But we can take a look at some of the armor here. So here we have our different sets of armor that you can obtain during the game. You can buy and sell, and you can find. We also have here, we have some armor, some magical properties for your armor. So ways to strengthen your armor with magic. And then there will also be these kind of relics, these wondrous items that you can find. And those will be numbered. And so it might tell you, I know on this quest here, you have found wondrous item number 49. And that was the Ring of Nahala. And then here we have what it does. It gives us a +2 to our agility, and then a really cool a little piece of lore for each one of these items. So you aren't just getting a mechanical benefit, you're also learning about the world and the story as you discover these wondrous items. So with the characters, you can keep your characters in subsequent playthroughs. As your characters grow stronger, they will unlock certain things. You will unlock certain types of treasure that you will be mixing together in this treasure bag. And as you play, all of this stuff is permanent. All of this stuff will carry forward, will be persistent from one game, one campaign, one session to the next. And so everything is kind of working together to promote this idea of a persistent world with persistent characters that changes with you, that changes with the players as they continue to play the game. And that is kind of the main thing that has me very, very excited about this game. It really does feel like this kind of big open world sandbox adventure game. And finally, the things that I am excited about is the bestiary. And there will be, I think, over 200 different creatures in this game. So a lot of times games kind of fall down when it comes to the bestiary. There isn't a lot of variety in the combat challenges, but this game has tons of variety. And as you can see here, we have tier 2. So at each tier, again, tiers 1 through 5 will have their own cards that you are going to use. So at the beginning of the game, you will use your tier 1 standard enemy deck. And the enemies, we have things like the Spore Cloud Octopus, a skeleton. I love the art in this game. It's really good. The Ophidian Warrior, the Ophidian Assassin, the Leoblaka Hunter, the Leoblaka Dreadger, the Glutinous Decomposed, the Frog Folk Warrior, the Fish Folk Warrior, a Decomposed One, a Terekian Slave, a Rabid Pygmy, an Ogrekin, a Freebooter, Forest Wolf, Crows of the Newdark Officer, the Crows of Newdark, the Corpse Eater, the Coxswain, the Brown Bear, the Stellar Anemone, the Giant Spinner, and the Vagabond. And these enemies will have different keywords, and those will denote where they can be found and what biome they can be found in. You know, you won't find fish folk out in the desert. The fish folk will be around the water. So where you encounter these enemies will make a world sense. And I think that's really cool. And the enemies will have all of their different stats along the bottom here. They will have different types of attacks. You will roll a d6 to determine what kind of attack. When you meet them, they will have different reactions. So you don't always have to fight them. Sometimes you can bribe them. Sometimes they might fight. So this decomposed one will always be a fighter. But let's see what this vagabond does. Flee. You can bribe the vagabond here, or you can serve or fight or flee. So really cool. All kinds of different ways to encounter the enemies. It's not just I've come across an enemy and I fight the enemy. You might be able to bribe them or do something else to avoid a violent conflict. And here we have our elite enemies. So again, we will have a deck of tiered elite enemies. And these elite enemies are, of course, are stronger. And here we have things like giant crabs, a water weird, a Veilthorn ooze, a Thokanu, a shadow, a lord, a Leoblaka lord. The Leoblaka sounds like some kind of faction that you might be discovering. We have our frog folk shaman, the emerald priestess, the Karaka, the wolf knight, the tormentor, the pirate captain, the Mincian twin viper, the Herreria, the Guzma, the giant centipede, the crows of New Dark leader, the Kazakh Moor, and the Blood Rock Golem. So already just in tier 1, we already have a ton of enemy variety. We have more enemy variety just in one tier than some games have in their entire boxes. So if you are into large bestiaries with different types of creatures, with different abilities in different biomes, with different ways to interact with them, yeah, this game definitely has you covered. And that is one thing I'm really excited about because it is a problem that I find in a lot of games where they have a really limited bestiary, especially games that focus on combat with a limited bestiary. It just kind of feels like you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I don't get that sense with the Story of Many. One thing I completely forgot to mention when I was talking about the big open world is our campaign tracker. As you are playing, you will keep track of time, and the world will transition from summer to winter. And there will be different spots along the summer or the autumn or the winter tracks here where certain things will happen. And so as time progresses, you will also unlock different events. So there are time-gated events that you will come across while you are playing and while you are exploring the world. You will be able to gather keywords, and keywords will trigger certain things. Here we have our map that you can keep track of if you don't want to, if you can pass this around the table for people to take a look at a smaller, more condensed world map. And then at the back here, we have our different achievements. And these achievements, as you tick those up, they end in a number, and that number will be a different rumor or a different thing that you might be able to discover. So those are all the things that I really like. Those are the things that I am excited about. Those are the things that are getting me to put my money where my mouth is to back this game. Those are the things that I am looking forward to. Of course, there are some concerns. I hope this game avoids crowdfunding bloat. Right now, they are planning on one expansion to be released with the game. The designers have played the game extensively since 2018. They showed me a stack of the characters that they have played with in playtests, and it was like 2 inches thick. I mean, they've played the heck out of this game since 2018, and they claim that they are 80% done with everything. But as we know, it's that last 20% that can be the most difficult and time-consuming. I think Roger Deering of a Dungeon Crusade will definitely support me there because he was 90% done with his game for a long time. And it's that last 10% that can really kill a designer. So I'm hoping that 80% covers a lot of the detail, a lot of the work. And maybe they're just in that last 20% putting the final touches. And I'm hoping that they don't, just go crazy with too much stuff. It already feels big, but we don't need tons and tons of stretch goals and things to just add to that time. So the designers are Greek. I think this might be the first game from Greece that I've covered, and English is not their first language, but the game is being written entirely in English first, and there will be a ton of text. And because the text drives the entire game, it needs to be well written, it needs to be well edited and presented. What's here so far is pretty good. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10 as far as the rules and stuff written from a non-native English speaker. There is room for improvement. I'm hoping they take their time with that to get it as good as it can be, because it's going to be a monumental task to have all of this edited. The Rumors book and the Adventure book, they are both going to be hundreds of pages. So there is a ton of text. There are a ton of ways where if something isn't right, it could completely stymie somebody's ability to progress in their campaign. If it tells you to turn to a wrong paragraph or a wrong page or to set something up wrong. And so it really needs to be right. And because there is so much, that is just a huge, huge task. And I've seen games that are sunk by too much errata that completely derails the flow of the game for people. So that is one concern I have. The rule book is pretty massive. It's already coming in at about 80 pages, and I think they're at version 6 is the latest version that they have released. And so while the game doesn't necessarily have anything really complicated, it's not like learning a whole bunch of new systems. There are a lot of things to keep track of. And so the rule book does need to be good. And I'm hoping they can bring it in. I'm hoping it doesn't balloon to over 100 pages or more. Another thing is the table space. This game is quite the table hog. I can just barely fit the main map and kind of the components and cards over here. In order to play the game, I am going to have to utilize my small side table, my TV side table, in order to keep track of my characters. The characters might fit on the board, but when you start adding in that double layer sleeve for the characters and then all of the cards that your characters will have, it can take up a lot of table space. And so I'm hoping that I don't have to add too much more. As of right now, I can actually play the game. Hopefully it doesn't get as big as something like Bard Song, which didn't even fit on my table. And so I never even got a chance to play that game because I literally could not fit that game on my table. I don't think that'll be too much of a concern with this game. But as of right now, I'm kind of at capacity. So just know that if you are a gamer who plays on a small table like I am, just keep that in mind. You might need a little side table to make everything work. And finally, I hope that adventure tiered system working through tiers 1 through 5, I hope that's not too throttling on the fun when you are starting. I hope that tiers 1 and 2 are just as exciting, are just as much fun with just as many things to do and discover as tiers 4 and 5. So hopefully I don't feel like I'm too throttled at the beginning of the game. Hopefully I don't feel like I have to play for a really long time to finally get to the good part. I want the game to be good from the very beginning. Well, all right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the story of many. Again, if you want to check out detailed gameplay footage, go to One Stop Co-op Shop or Kanhei Studios. Both of them have very detailed videos on the mechanisms. I just wanted to tell you all why I am excited for this game and the reasons why I'm backing it and some of the things that I am concerned about. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.